In 2005, Big Rapids celebrates its 150th anniversary as a town. From the earliest years of the logging era, through much growth and change, the town once known as Leonard has moved steadily forward, along with its many neighboring villages and towns in Mecosta County. Let's look back as local historians, residents, and community neighbors share the story of Mecosta and the county seat, Big Rapids.
In 1851, John Davis, who was an Irishman and been a sailor for 15 years in his life, moved into the area that became known as Mecosta County. And he lived down on 8 Mile Road near 180th Avenue, where the old state road goes through. In 1852, William Brockway and his wife and children moved to Mitchell Creek in Big Rapids, and they spent the winter, and he was a timber cruiser looking for good timberland for his cousin, his wife's brother, Robert Mitchell. And Zero French was so interested in the property and what he saw in this area that he, after the timber had been cut, he went down to Ionia and purchased 160 acres of what he considered was the most beautiful property he'd ever seen in the state of Michigan. And they moved into a shanty that he and his brother had built, and immediately went down on Mitchell Creek across from where the fire station now is, and built Zera's house. And that was the family that first lived here year-round, and they are considered the founders of Big Rapids. And the year was March of 1854, and Zera had just turned 27 years old. When Big Rapids, the county first started, the big economic industry in the area was the logging industry. And the first logs that were cut in this entire region were cut by Thomas Douglas Stimson and Delos Blodgett. And they did that in the winter of 1853. And you have to remember, the entire state of Michigan, especially in this area, was just covered nothing but logs, but trees all over the place.
The peak periods of logging in Big Rapids were in the 1870s and 1880s. After that, things began to decline some. And by 1905, the last logging drive had gone down the river, and at that point, things really began to decline. This is when you turn more to the furniture industry, and a lot of the hardwoods were harvested by some of the area farmers that brought them. And hardwoods pretty much ignored when they first went through, because that virgin white pine was awful tempting to those early harvesters. And they just took just everything and left virtually nothing behind. But there were a lot of hardwoods that wasn't considered all that great a wood for them. But later on, when the furniture industries really developed, that stuff was used to cut just about all that too. In the
1870s in Big Rapids, there were 3 or 4 major timber barons operating in Big Rapids. One is T.D. Stimson with his store, who could outfit a logging camp, and with his vast holdings of logs that he was cutting, and his planing mills across the river. There was also Oliver P. Pillsbury and his store, and all of the land that he owned. There was John Brown of Tioga Manufacturing, owned the biggest store in Big Rapids. It's 50 feet wide, 150 feet long, and 3 stories high. And he had a store, an office building, and a convention center all in the one building. All of these men were multimillionaires, and each group of men owned about 5% of the county at that time. And there was others such as Sanborn and Russ, and one other man who's mostly forgotten now, but his logging career started in Mecosta County, was John Sylvester Wademan. And the impact of all of these men coming here is what generated Big Rapids.